to 20% of the fandom have fursuits. They're considered a luxury item. They're expensive, and for some people they can't wear them, either health concerns, or I've even ran across people that are just claustrophobic in fursuit heads. Because I've tried to get people to wear my suit, and they're like, no. They put the head on and freak out. So not everybody has a suit, so don't feel like you need to have a suit to be a furry. And then, of course, many furry conventions raise thousands of dollars for various charities each year. I think it was MFF this past year. What did we hit for that?
97. 10.8. 97.
Yeah, it was insane. It was almost $100,000 for charity, and every con will usually pick like a different charity. And that's something I don't see very often in other fandoms. Not to downplay them, but I think for what we do, I think that's an amazing thing, that people come together and can do something for the common good. So that was pretty much just a general overview. So some basics to being a furry, and we're going to expand more on these as we go, and eventually Mark and Hers will show up, so they'll help out. So some basics of being a furry. You can create a character.
I'm speaking of Michael Garrett.
Hey! I'm taking after him too much, though.
You're gonna be late to your own funeral.
I'm glad you're here because I'm gonna need you for the art part. All right. So
Wait, let's introduce them properly. Say your name and the interest.
Hi, I'm Mark Sparks, and my interest is being a furry.
You can call me Gers, and I'm a furry artist for a living. It's a very hard living.
Oh, am I supposed to say something?
Was I supposed to say something?
Alright. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kiwi or Kiwi Fox. I make furry YouTube stuff and I scream at a camera and people enjoy it. So.
And I'm Majira.
We figured that. We all figured that. That's why we're here.
Alright. Hi. So some basics to being a furry. Again, if you want to create a character, you can. It is not required. You can commission art of your character, or, well, actually, yeah, you should only commission art of your character. Don't commission art of other people's characters unless you ask first. It's kind of weird. There's also free-to-use line art. We'll get into more of that later, especially because we have our resident artist at the end there.
Don't make me angry.
She is small, but she's scrappy. We'll also talk about furry conventions if you've never been, commissioning and making a fursuit, as well as a few do's and don'ts of being a furry, which I think they're common sense. Moving on. So, creating a character. First thing, you can choose a character that resonates with you. Now, Mark actually brought up a good point to me about how he found his character, and I'm going to let him explain that, because for me it was just like, oh, I want to be a fox, it's cute and fluffy, but the way you did it I think was a bit different.
So, one of the way that I created my character, which is this dumb thing right here, basically I actually took what's called the Myers-Briggs test, which is a personality test that will give you a 3-letter combination or 4-letter combination. And you can actually go online and type in what animal matches that 4-letter combination that matches your personality, and you can actually find animals close. So I got dog, so I picked this derpy thing because that's what I figured would be most fitting. And then all you got to do is find what species you are, and then go off of creating off of that if that's what you choose to do.
And going with that, there is no right or wrong way to design a character once you pick one. Or rather, I guess what I should have said there is no right or wrong character for you. You don't have to resign yourself to being a fox or a wolf or any other canid or a canine or Jesus, feline. You can pick whatever speaks to you. So even if you do take a test and you're like, well, I don't really agree with that, you don't have to follow that. You can be whatever you want to be. And then of course, Myers-Briggs test, I actually hope I spelled that correctly if people want to go and look that up if you've never taken one. It's the test that'll give you like INFP or INTJ. It's like that code that describes you. Like if you're extroverted, introverted, I can't remember the rest of them. It's one of those, it like does like a whole analysis. It'll ask a whole bunch of questions to give you an idea like what your personality is. And then of course, the last point, have fun with the creative process. If you do end up picking a character and designing one, have a blast with it. If you want to make a backstory, write a backstory. Make a novel out of it.
Another important thing as well is that if you don't like it right off the bat and you make a character and then you look at it and say, well, this doesn't exactly fit what I was originally going with, it's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You can change it. You can add different color schemes to it. It's all yours. This is yours to create.
Exactly. I must have changed my character probably 5 times in the last, 5-10 years I've had him. People go through, even with our favorite Majira here, you've seen the changes he's made over the years to his character. You got rid of the coyote part of yourself. You changed the color scheme around. What else have you done with him? Anything major? The eyes, that's right, you got rid of the purple.
Got rid of the gold.
I like the gold, but so you're never locked in. Even if you end up being a big old celebrity here, you can still change the character to still fit how you feel about it. You don't have to stay resigned to just the initial design process. I'm gonna let Gur start answering these ones. This is the commissioning art in the
This
furry.
is my turn, okay. So, first bullet point is there are a plethora of artists within the fandom. Don't be afraid to look around for one that meets your needs. Every single artist is obviously different, like especially here at Anime Cons, you can tell that as well. If you feel like your character should be drawn a certain way, then take your time to find the artist that fits your style, because not every artist can emulate what you want unless you go to an artist that you feel like is closest to what you're looking for. I think it's very important. Let's see, the next bullet point is Twitter for Affinity and DeviantArt are great places to start looking. There's really not a great central location right now for commissioning artwork, but like I have been doing all my commission work on Twitter just because don't really like what DeviantArt's been doing, and then FA is just old.
What do you have
I use
against old
Twitter.
things?
That thing kind of looks like MySpace.
It's literally always breaking. So there's a ton of places you can look. I would definitely look at one of the places listed up there for artists and just take your time. Plan your budget in advance, because no art should be free. Even if they're your friend, always don't ask for free art unless they're doing some special thing, or say this is free art. Usually, this is just an estimate, but usually art within the community ranges anywhere from $20 to a couple hundred, depending. It just depends. Some people are more expensive. And then the last one is know and understand your artist's terms of service and abide by them, because not every artist does their work the same. Their process is different. The amount of time they take is different. It's very important to see what your artist is comfortable doing, and feel free to ask questions. I'm sure all artists, I sure like it when people ask me questions of if they aren't sure if I can do a thing or want to do a thing. Terms of service also helps protect the artist and you in case something happens, so make sure you know what's going on.
He's stared at me 3 times.
Does anyone miss anything?
I was going to say, to add on to that, a big thing I see a lot of artists worrying about is some artists will blatantly say in their terms of service or on their profiles, some prefer not to draw maybe adult artwork. If that's the case, don't ask them to do something they don't want to do. Going with terms of service, if you settle on a price, don't ask them to change the price after you've accepted it. Or more often than not, don't tell them, oh, that's too expensive. Or rather, I should say, if it's outside your budget, just politely decline it. But I've seen terrible DMs get sent to not only hers, but other artists as well. I guess, be nice when you're dealing with artists, because they're the ones that give this fandom a lot of visual representation. And I consider fursuit makers to be artists too, because this is a form of art. It's just 3D art. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought on that. So.
Oh, I think you got it.
All right, what did I do for the next one? I already forgot. Furry conventions. All right, this one you better have something to say. So first thing, this is pretty common even for anime conventions or any convention really. If you're planning your first convention, especially furry convention, plan your budget accordingly. And this isn't just the simple hotel room and travel expenses. You've also got to take into account, you've got to eat when you're at a convention. You have to sleep, you have to shower. You're probably going to want to buy stuff in the dealer's den, which costs money. So take all of those expenses into account. I used to do anime cons 10, 12 years ago. I started going to these. And I would go and say $500. I thought, oh, that's enough money for the weekend. The hotel room alone was usually $400 to that, and then it's like, well, I guess I'm not eating for the rest of the weekend. So more realistically, for most conventions, I'd say at least $1,000 a start if you're not flying, and then go up from there based on prior experience, or talk to people that have gone. Now, I'm assuming because all of you are here, you've done at least one convention and have some idea what it costs when you go to them. So I would say it's safe on that front for everyone here. If you don't have roommates, and this can actually go for anime cons as well, this isn't very specific. There is a website called Con Roomies, where people that may have a vacancy in their room or they're looking for someone to help split room calls, you can actually go on this website, look for specific cons, and they will show you people looking to fill a room, and it will give you their contact information. You can reach out to them on either Twitter or Telegram, whatever they put up there. And if you feel comfortable getting to know them and want to share a room with them, it can help you meet people you never would have. My first FurCon was Midwest Fur Fest 2016. That's how I got to that convention. I didn't know anybody in the fandom at that point. I went on the website, found a group looking for a fourth member for the room, got to know them on Twitter, felt comfortable. We split a room for the weekend. It was one of the best cons I'd ever done. Probably more so than most anime cons I've done because my old anime friends are nerds.
Another thing as well is a lot of the websites for the cons themselves actually have pages set up and forums set up so that if you're looking for one, people will leave their information on there so you can contact them if you want to check it out. I would suggest that because that was what happened with my first convention, FWA 2016. I actually went on their website and found a forum that had all these listed informations. It's super helpful. I would suggest at least checking into the forums for your first convention if you're having any questions about anything that's going on. That's something important to keep in mind.
Yeah. You got anything for that?
It's also like if you're going to a local con, you can just stay at your house and drive every day. Not even have to worry about that.
Very fair. All right, where did I leave off? Oh yeah, so the minors thing. This is actually a big thing that doesn't seem to get mentioned a lot. So I'm not gonna ask because I don't need to know, but if there are minors that go to conventions, big thing to remember, every con has a different stance on minors. Most conventions, you can go if you're under 18, but you will need a signed release form from your parent or guardian.
And you need to be supervised by someone.
Yeah, it has to be, sometimes it has to be notarized.
Yeah. And I don't know that every con requires, say, a chaperone, but you have to have that paper or they won't even give you a badge.
Typically, it's either like you have a paper that's notarized and signed by your parents, or your parent goes with you to the convention.
So keep that in mind if you do decide to go to a con. And also check, because there are some cons that are unfortunately 18 and up. Now, I don't know of any American cons, but I went to a Purdue.
Yeah, there's some in America that
Sorry,
are 18.
MCMC.
That's 18 and plus? Okay.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind if you're under 18, make sure that the con you want to go to, you can legally go to. Because if you're under 18, some won't even take a form. They're just like, we're sorry, 18 and up. It has a lot to do with, it's not that the con doesn't like minors, it's more so an insurance risk, the way they have the business set up. Sometimes they don't want to worry about if a minor's there, what could happen. And then the last thing really on furry conventions, at least that I haven't had, and of course I'll open this up for everybody, but every con is different. If you go to a con and you don't really enjoy it, don't be afraid to try another one because every con is different. Every con has a different atmosphere. It can change depending upon the location that it's in, the crowd that goes, the people you go with can definitely change how you experience a convention. And just never write off going to any anime, furry comic. Don't write it off after the first one. Give others a shot. You might find that this is really awesome. Just maybe that one specific con wasn't that great for you.
Yeah, I was about to say, because even some of the cons that we attend regularly, sometimes we just don't have a good experience at those cons for whatever reason. It could be the con itself or it could be something in the background. It doesn't hurt to say, okay, well, this one kind of was bad, but let's go to the next one. Let's try something different. Let's try a new location. Maybe it'll be different next year. The thing is that with the furry fandom especially revolves around these conventions. And it's something that's important. Like, yes, on the internet, there's all these great things going on, but really, if you're trying to find a social aspect of the furry fandom, go to these conventions. Go try them out. Because that's where you meet a lot of people. That's what I meant. All of these guys. So keep that in mind and keep that important. Because that's probably one of the most social gatherings in the furry fandom.
I want to expand upon this a little. If you need to get away for whatever reason or you just need to relax, being in a room where you know the people and you trust them is very important. Now, I understand if you like have to room with strangers because of your situation, just like make sure you have communication between them on what's going on. But like once you find that group that you can always room with and stick with, that's the best thing ever because it keeps you safe. It helps you if you really need to escape the crime scene for whatever reason. It saves our butts, and that's why we're always together all the time now.
I would also say like, don't stress out too much at cons. Don't try to like. This is just for me anyway. Don't try to stretch yourself thin trying to do everything. I think the best way to do a con is to go and just go with the flow and maybe have some sort of direction of what you want to do. But I think by just like doing like what your friends are doing and just being around people is what makes it really fun. That's just for me. You might have a different outlook. But
Don't schedule yourself for every single minute
yeah, like
of the day.
it's just like if you want to go to a convention, you have a million things to do. Like you're more likely to get stressed out, and it's a vacation. You don't want to be stressed out. So I would say just if you want to go to something, go to it. But if it doesn't happen, don't stress out about it. Don't let it get you down. Just keep trying to have fun because these cons are supposed to be fun.
No, you're right. Unless you're staffing, that's a whole different. You right there.
If you're staffing, it's the end.
It's not necessarily, but it's pretty close.
So then the next thing I want to talk about is commissioning a fursuit. And we'll talk about making a fursuit next because that's obviously an option too. But when commissioning a fursuit, just like with commissioning artwork, there's a lot of similarities. So for instance, I get the question a lot from new furs that want to know, where should I get a fursuit or who should I have making a fursuit? And I say the same thing to every single one of them. What style do you want? Do you want toony? Do you want realistic? What features do you want? Do you want 3D follow me eyes? Do you want resin? There's a lot of different things that can help you narrow down what set to look at and then look between them and say, man, I really like this maker's style or I like this maker's way of doing things. And it's like shopping for a car, no two people are gonna buy the same thing, so find what speaks to you. And then when you do, start to move forward with the commissioning process. And so when you find a maker that you like, then you wanna get something called a reference sheet, which a lot of you probably already know about if you're furries. And all a reference sheet is it shows your character in different views, front, side, and back, because if I don't know your character and I'm a maker and I look at your character sheet, I should be able to tell where everything goes front, side, back, markings, color patterns, views, etc. Let's see. And then next thing, you want to communicate clearly and fully with the maker. So say Clifford here wants to commission another fursuit. He's going to reach out to the maker and he's going to say, all right, I want a fursuit, here's my ref sheet. The maker's going to say, okay, is there anything else you'd like to have done to the suit? And then that's when you communicate things like LED eyes or claws, maybe something a little different from the sheet, like a different color variation. And you just want to keep that conversation open and clear so that there's no mistakes when they get the product done that you're like, oh man, this isn't what I paid for. And then there's a whole big dispute. How many people here know what a duct tape dummy is? Okay, thank God. I'll still talk about them, but I'm glad most of you understand the concept. So all a duct tape dummy is when you go to get a fursuit made by somebody other than yourself, they need to know what your body looks like. They need a 3D form of you to make sure the suit's going to fit. Okay, they're outside. So the easiest way to do that is you make what's called a duct tape dummy. Now there is probably hundreds of tutorials on YouTube for this by now. And it's as simple as you go to the hardware store, you get one of those cheap painter suits, and then you cover it in duct tape. That's literally it. And then you get your friends to help you and cut yourself out and then tape it up. You send it off to the maker, and then they can stuff it and have a perfect model of you, which means the suit that you're about to pay thousands of dollars for will actually fit the way you want it to.
2 points of advice for duct tape dummies: make sure you have friends and make sure you brought scissors. If you don't have either of those, you're going to be in for a bad night.
Also, make sure you have enough duct tape. That's also an issue. If you're halfway done and then run out of duct tape.
Then you're just stuck in the sun.
Yeah.
That's happened. I was duct taping my friend, and we ran out of duct tape, so I picked her up and plopped her on a sofa, and we stayed there for 45 minutes while I went to the store to get more.
Is that video still on YouTube? If we have time, I'm going to show that.
Also, the thing is, make sure you have something to cut you out of. And the reason why is the first time I had my duct tape dummy, we didn't buy scissors. So I had to pocket knife myself. out of the duct tape dummy, which got me a pretty good amount of cuts on my legs and arms. So make sure you at least buy scissors.
Here, please.
And if you're gonna wear clothing under the painter suit, just make sure you don't care about the clothing because it's probably gonna get cut as well.
Yeah.
No Louis Vuitton underwear or anything like that. You got it.
That also probably means that you're gonna end up somewhat naked around them, so make sure that you're
Oh yeah,
okay
make
with
sure
that.
they're friends.
It's just how it has to go. I'm sorry. It's just how it happens.
I mean, I live streamed my duct tape dummy, so half of YouTube saw me in just my underwear.
It's like a bathing suit, okay?
It doesn't violate the terms of service.
Maybe that's where the strike came from.
Anyway, let's move on.
All right. Last point to commissioning a fursuit, just like with an artist, but more specifically with fursuits, budget accordingly and follow any payment arrangements. It is very common for fursuit makers to accept payment arrangements where you give them a down payment and then you pay the rest off in increments, either monthly, bi-weekly, whatever. Always stick to those and know those terms when you agree to them. Because once you sign, because what will happen is, nowadays, makers will email you, excuse me, they will email you a contract and you sign that and you will actually be legally bound in that contract for paying off the fursuit. Usually if you break the contract, they just keep your money and you don't get any of it back. So if you're gonna spend thousands of dollars, make sure you get what you paid for. So yeah, budget and follow those payment arrangements. If you run into any problems, makers are very understanding. Reach out to them. Never be afraid to tell them like, oh man, I can't do this month's payment, something happened. Just keep an open line of communication and they'll be more than happy to
Yeah,
help.
it's not like a bank loan.
No.
You know, I mean, like, there's always stuff that comes up in everybody's lives, and makers know and understand the hardships. So if you come up and say, hey, look, something happened, I can't make this month's payment, or something like that, they'll understand and just push it back, or they'll make it work with you. Don't ever get fully down with the payment process that you might lose your money because you accidentally broke the contract. Just make sure that you're communicating everything clearly. That's the most important part of commissioning a fursuit.
Ooh, that does bring up another point though. On the flip side of that, if you commission a fursuit and they don't give you a contract or they don't give you a clear terms of service, be
That's
very
dangerous.
cautious. Research is key, and I don't know, did you ever have an issue with being scammed out of a fursuit?
Oh yeah, okay. So fun story. So this has a bodysuit, but I never wear it. And the reason why is I commissioned somebody for an actual body for this. And my character's all white. It's not really that hard to make an actual body for it. You just gotta get the white fur and then stitch it all together. Well, this person took a year and a half to actually come up and make the proper fursuit. Or at least show me a proper photo of them going through the process. So after about a year and a half, I said, okay, I didn't sign a document saying that I was bound to this terms of service. I paid you $1,000 for this body. If I don't get it, I'm going to be subpoenaing you for court. And sure enough, 2 weeks go by, they didn't have any process. They told me no. And I actually sent them a subpoena for court because they actually had scammed me out of $1,000, which I can take them to small claims court for. So I'm going to say if it gets to that point, know your legal limits, know what's going on. If you have any concerns, you can actually contact an attorney and talk to them about it. At the time I was in the military, we get free laws. We get free lawyers pretty much anytime we need them. But if I was to do it now, it'd be a little bit more difficult. So keep that in mind. If there's no contract, be ready for anything. Because if there's no contract binding you to anything and binding them to anything, then there's a world of hurt that could happen. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, if you know anyone who has a fursuit by a maker you like, I'd say it's a good idea to talk to them, ask them how the process is, if it's easy or if the maker is kind of shady or anything, because you never know. So it's good to just talk to people, reach out to people who maybe have their suits and just see what their experience is like.
Yeah, word of mouth is very powerful in this fandom, and I'm sure many of you that are already furries know this, but information travels fast among us. So anything like a beware or an issue with an artist or a fursuit maker is going to be known, so that's why it's, if you find a maker no one really knows about, just do some research, and maybe they're a good maker that's just up and coming, or maybe there's a reason they don't have much business, but it never hurts to look into it before you send them your money. And then on the flip side, making a fursuit. This is the route that I took because I didn't want to drop thousands of dollars on this. So the first thing I tell everybody that wants to even attempt making a suit, don't be afraid of it. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube. I made my first suit by literally sitting in my office with my laptop and just following a girl by the name of Kloof Suits, and I just basically did everything she told me to do. I learned how to sculpt a head. I already knew how to stitch from doing cosplay for many years, and I just kind of went through and learned whatever I didn't know and put the pieces together to build my first suit. It wasn't perfect, but as with every maker out there, you start somewhere and then you get better. But the advantage I think people in the hallway are talking to me. The advantage to making a suit versus commissioning is the cost. You can save a lot of money because you're not paying for someone else's labor, you're putting in your own. Also, there's kind of a bit of pride there to say that I made this. You know, people are usually amazed. I'm definitely amazed when I find, especially younger furries, anywhere from 10 to 13 years old, that make their own suits, and you would swear that it came from a big name maker, because these kids are extremely talented. Obviously, if you have any questions about anything in the process, there are plenty of tutorials. So if you're stuck on something as easy as like stitching, or you can't quite get something shaped right on the muzzle or the head or whatever, you can Google it or go on YouTube. There's going to be a video explaining it from somebody, and they will usually do a very good job of it as well. They'll show you different angles and kind of break it down so it's easier to put back together in practice.
Can I also say, there are places like Furbuy and other websites where you can go and actually buy pre-made supplies that you can use if you don't want to make it like from scratch yourself. There's fursuit makers that sell the foam bases of heads that you can use, so that at least that if you don't know how to sculpt, you can use that and do everything else, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, you can buy head bases, you can buy foam, resin, whatever material you prefer to work with. You can buy those. I think Dealer's Den sells them from time to time. You'd be amazed. And they come in all different species and sizes and shapes. So if you're not comfortable building a head but want to try furring it, you can just buy a pre-made base and then there you go. So make sure that kind of ties in with, make sure you know the materials you're using. One thing I tell people time and time again is be very wary of buying fake fur locally, especially at Joann's. They've gotten better, but for the longest time the fur you bought there was cheap and not that great. It would fall apart. You could literally go up to somebody and like pull a big chunk of it off. Oh my god. So yeah, you want to do a little bit of research. I prefer to buy my materials online because you can save a little bit of money when you buy in bulk, and also I tend to ask other makers like, hey, where do you get your fur from? And you can find a better selection of colors, lengths, and different textures and order them that way.
Another thing off of that is know that some of the stuff you buy, when you think it's a good idea, and then when making it, it's not going to be a good idea. I've seen people try to use cardboard as making a fursuit, and just don't do that, because then you're at liability for mold and a bunch of other things. Make sure that when you're making it, you know what you're doing, at least read into it, do some research into it, and know what could happen and what you're looking at. That's important.
It's a big black brick.
About all I can think of. Yeah, it's pretty much the same as commissioning, with the added difficulty of just knowing what you're working with and then building it in a way that it's going to be safe and enjoyable to wear. I know yesterday you brought up the heads that they're putting polyfill in.
Yeah.
That is definitely not something you want to ever attempt. There is a bit of a safety hazard with having a head that is stuffed with polyfill versus just foam, because polyfill doesn't breathe. It'll actually trap heat, and then you will overheat much faster because the head is where most of your body heat tries to come from.
It's also not just that, but because there's like loose strands, you can over time ingest them, and
Yeah.
it can really be a hazard to breathing.
I mean, let's be real though, you're gonna swallow fur anyway.
I know, but let's minimize it as much as we can.
If you've ever worn a fursuit and said that you didn't inhale fur, you're a liar.
It happens to everybody.
Also, just a quick reminder, that's budget accordingly number 4.
Yeah. That's a very common theme in the fandom when it comes to anything involving money. Just budget accordingly, because it's kind of expensive to get into, especially like the conventioning and fursuit side.
Nothing is
Really
free.
nervous about something to
I'm
say,
sorry,
but I don't know what to
nothing is
say.
free.
But there are such things as trades, which are nice.
Yes.
I should have put that as a bullet point. For the artists out there, there are a lot of artists that want to do art trades. Because instead of just being commissioned and given money for art, sometimes it can allow a more creative process where you and another artist do a piece for each other, and it gives you a chance to do something in a much different style than you're used to.
And collaborations happen too. Because like I know several people who have suits that were made by like several different makers, but they all collabed on the same piece.
Those are really
cool.
awesome. Yeah, when you find fursuits where maybe somebody does the head, another maker does the body, then somebody else will do like the paws and the tail, and then they're all working towards a common goal, and it can look really good.
Yeah, so like,
Well,
for
yours is an
example,
indirect collaboration.
yeah, it's an indirect collaboration, but this was made by 2 different fursuit makers. Originally by More for Less, and then later revamped by Fleet and Vinnick. And it looks a lot better than when I first had it, in my opinion.
A lot fluffier.
A lot fluffier.
Dude, your original head was cute, but it was just like it didn't have any of them. I'm gonna show pictures of that later.
Okay.
The original head, it was like, oh, it's cute, and then you see that, and you're like, all right, I forget what the next one was. Ah, the do's and don'ts slide.
Important.
This one I had to keep short because I could make this pages and pages long. But for the people not in the fandom, we'll keep this pretty brief. So the biggest thing, and I think this would apply to a lot of any creative fandom, don't steal somebody's original character. You wouldn't want to be out there pretending to be Majira because, well, people are going to know you're not him. It's more fun to be your own person because then you have your own identity and people can see you as you, not just somebody pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah, don't get your character from Google Images.
Oh my god.
That
Please
doesn't
don't
I
do
did
it.
that a few years back.
That's somebody else's character. We all have made that mistake when we were younger, or at least a lot of us have.
Most of the time it's kids that do that, and I did that. Everyone has, I'm pretty sure, just like try not to.
Yeah, I mean, you can, yeah. That's something that's important. Just know, like, if you see somebody who has art and it looks familiar, that it might not be theirs. The biggest thing is that you can make a character based off of somebody else's, or you can use their art. You just have to contact that artist or contact the person who made that, whose character that is, and ask them. Because some people will be okay with it. Like, I've seen a lot of people who are like, yeah, like, Falvey just kind of gave up.
Oh my god.
Falvey, if you've ever seen any art piece of just like a fox and it looks really nice and really, really good, and it's not their artwork, it's most likely Falvey. Because Falvey's art gets stolen
Almost
so
like their
much.
lowest day.
Yeah, most times.
They have like a more like the fur is like a pointy style. We'd have to pull up images. You
Yeah.
guys might.
We'll get there, we've got
But,
plenty of time. We still got
Basically,
I don't.
if you type in furry fox on Google Images, you're probably going to see a lot of Falvey art because it's just how it works, I guess.
I don't want to tangent on this for too long, but I wanted to bring this up since this is a recent thing that happened to me. Literally, someone on Twitter like basically just like color shifted this exact character, which I designed, to purple, and then said, "This is my character, Chloe." And I was like, "No, that's mine still." So I nicely approached them and talked to them about it, and they felt really bad, and they fixed it up. And I even went as far as to help them redesign a purple tiger because they just wanted a purple tiger. And I was like, well, I can do that. I'll do this for you for free so that you can like enjoy yourself and be happy. I don't want to make some kid upset. Like you don't want to make someone cry over it if they're apologetic. So
Yeah.
be nice at first. If they're mean, then they deserve it.
Yeah, the thing to know is that, like, especially for the fandom now, a lot of people are actually copywriting their characters.
I'm actually in the process of doing that.
So if you steal somebody's art piece or their character, know that you could actually be somewhat legally binded.
You could get sued.
Yeah, you
Please
can
don't
get
do
sued
that.
for that. Yes?
This is just kind of a story, but a while back, on Facebook, I had like my character as a profile picture, and someone came up to me and messaged me like saying, "Hey, I like your species because I have an original species. Can I make my own?" I said, "Sure." They took the picture, which the drawing wasn't mine. It was a gift from a friend who was troubled with their art, and literally redrew it and claimed it as their own character. And they were basically blocked on every social media website except Facebook, and now they're gone, and I haven't heard anything from that.
Yeah. Just make sure that when it comes to making your persona or making your character, you don't get it off of Google Images
Or Facebook.
or Facebook or any other art form where it's clearly somebody else's.
Just avoid Facebook in general.
Don't be a furry on Facebook. It's the worst.
It sucks.
Another couple of things that are pretty common. Don't expect too much from your commissioners. Meaning, if you go to, say you go to GERS and commission artwork, don't expect it to be done in an hour or a day, especially if it's a complicated piece. because they have lives too, and things take time. You know, an artist may not sit down and do something from beginning to end in one go. They might take it in stages. So just, especially with fursuits too, is those things take months to build. So just, you know, don't expect the world from them. The age-old phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day, holds true, especially in our fandom. Things take time. And so if you do give someone your money in exchange for something, just give them that time to do it.
I'll just say this briefly. Always, if they don't list it, ask a time frame in which they usually complete their work. They'll usually tell you a time frame. You know, just ask, like, I don't know, it's okay to go and ask them, like, hey, just checking on updates, maybe every, like, few days or so, but don't, like, immediately every day ask them, because that gets really anxiety.
Yeah, also if they have a Trello, I would ask for the Trello up front, just because that way you can see how much is in their queue and how quickly they're working on it. And so
What
that
is
way you
Trello,
can-
Mark?
Yeah, explain what Trello is.
Sorry. Trello is basically a place for artists or anybody really nowadays. They'll put what they're planning to do and what their time process is or what their current status is. Like I've seen even Discord developers use it to basically say, okay, we want this patch out by this time and here's what's going to be in it. It's the same thing
It
with
shows their progress work.
so for furry artists, you can make a Trello and be like, okay, here's the sketch for this specific thing, and then you post the image of it, and then you go on with it. Trello's a great place for artists, and it's a great place for people who are commissioning for artists. It's really good. So.
Continue, Kiwi.
Okay. And then we'll just do these last three because we're going to take questions obviously at the end, and I want to make sure we have time for that because we have like 16 minutes to go. So, some do's in the fandom. Do have fun, enjoy it for everything it has to offer. We have not just fursuits and art, there are musicians in our fandom. We've got people that dance and put on exhibitions. We have conventions. We have fur meets that people put on at your local bowling alleys or other areas, so you don't have to go to a con. Once you start digging into it, there is a lot more than just the surface that people see, which is fursuits, conventions. Like there's a whole world beneath that you can explore. So definitely check that out. That's why I say you don't have to have a character if you don't want one, because there's plenty of stuff to do that doesn't require it. Like we know people that make music and that is their life, and it's incredible with what they do. And that can be an entire experience in its own right. And they, you know, some of them have characters and some don't. They just really want to make music specific to the band. One of them actually made songs for all of us so far.
Yeah.
They do like electronic music, so there's a lot of things you can do that is beyond just here's a picture, here's a person. Obviously, you can make a character and make new friends. I should have just left that at meet new friends. That's a big thing in this fandom that I can attest to is you meet so many awesome people because I think we had this discussion yesterday. The difference between, say, furries and anime is that with anime, you're all fans of maybe a same show, but it's somebody else's creation. With furries, you all have your own creations, but you're all still kind of around that same common goal, and that offers so much more to talk about. When you meet someone you've never met before, and you can instantly start up a conversation with them, you can make an amazing friend in the span of 10 minutes and not even realize it.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, I was about to say, because like even me, when I was in the Army, it was like, oh, I'm getting PCS over the place, I don't know anybody there, I don't know what to do. And sure enough, I'd get in with the local groups, either on Facebook, which don't use Facebook, but if you want to use Facebook, because you have nowhere else to turn, then yeah, and I found a whole group of people that I became best friends with for 6 months before I left for my next place. The furry fandom is great for making friends. It's a very social construct place. So even if you don't have a character, you can go to a furry convention, make friends, and have just a great time. That's the whole point of the furry fandom, really.
Anything else you want to add to that?
You can make friends, make PowerPoint for you.
Who you're talking about. So like the last thing before we take questions is, you know, the biggest thing with the fandom is ask questions if you're not sure. And that literally can mean anything. You have questions about art, fursuits, music, conventions, just if if you want to ask somebody what their favorite band is, you know, questions are how you get answers around here. So never be scared to ask questions. I get questions all the time in my inbox, and I answer them. It can be anything from what's the temperature today to, like, you know, anything fandom related. I just felt like putting that in there because it seemed appropriate. And I needed the 6th bullet point.
Well, it's also a good transition on to the next slide.
Questions!